Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday night. That, of course, means it's time for the Rubbins Racing Touring Car Championship. Currently on race 5 of our 6-race season, so things are starting to come to a close here in season 3 of 2020. And with only 2 races to go, the championship is looking all but a 2-horse race. Although stranger things have happened. My name's Murphy. I'm going to be guiding you through tonight's race. We are, of course, at the Sugo GP circuit here in Japan. And as these guys work through their final 4 minutes of free practice, just before the first qualification session of the evening, don't forget there's going to be 2 qualifications to go along with the 2 races that we're going to be bringing here. Let's have a little bit of a run through on what the championship standings are currently looking like. Mobi, who are currently tracking around the Sugo GP circuit, is of course topping out that table on 245 points. His closest rival though, Sheep, currently sat in second on 225. Don't forget, ladies and gents, 35 points on offer for a race victory tonight, with bonus points for fastest lap and for that pole position inside either of those qualification sessions. That's not to discount Uniclark though. He's currently sat in 3rd position in the championship standings. He's on 185 points, so it's not a mathematical uncertainty, but judging off the run of form from Mobi and Sheep himself, it is looking a little bit out of touch for the championship title. Few absences to note from tonight. K Morse, after his stunning brace of victories last week around that Fuji GP circuit inside his BMW, fantastic spectacle to watch. Unfortunately, he can't make the race this evening, so he's going to miss out on points. Also absent is our 6th place Lightblade. He's unable to make it, as is Lecky. So 3 drivers out. That means that we've had to pull in a couple of drivers from the reserves. I know one of them is currently showing up, which is listed down as our number 6 at the moment, which is Cam Diz. Let's have a look. He's currently rocking the 54 livery Renault Megane. So keep an eye out for him. Definitely a fast guy. He's been part of the community for quite a while now, and generally has really good pace in whatever he's driving. So expect him to get up and about the rest of our regular grid in the evening. Are expecting a couple of more drivers, so we'll have to wait and see whether or not this grid fills up. Currently only 10 drivers out there on the circuit though, with 3 of them currently sat in the pits. So, as I mentioned, the top 3 drivers currently separated by 60 points between Mobi and Uniclark. Let's have a little run through the rest of the standings whilst we've got a minute and a half remaining of the session. That Qatar dude currently sat in 4th position on 176 points. He's followed by the absent K Morse on 159 and the absent Lightblade on 157. Bobby Dazzler, he sat in 7th place on 135 points, with Lionsfoot, our lead coordinator for the RRTCC, currently sat in 8th place on 112. Then just behind Lionsfoot we've got Kovkarl on 106 points, followed by Lecky on 91. Then it's Tro in 11th place with 70, followed by Evan on 59 at the bottom of the regular standings. Just saw Cam Diz getting a little bit squirrely there out of the chicane, catching a load of gravel. That's likely to catch a few guys out, especially if they're battling side by side. Definite technique to taking that corner and not unbalancing the car. And there isn't much track in that particular section either. It does narrow to try and get the optimum line. It's going to be fantastic viewing, watching these guys go side by side through this circuit. As ever, for any of those that are viewing, let me know your predictions for tonight's race. I'd love to hear from you. We are just in the final 10 seconds now of free practice, and then we're going to get started on the first qualification for tonight's sprint race. Weather forecast is looking clear throughout both of the sessions. In fact, it's almost perfect conditions here on the island of Honshu around this Sugo circuit. 3.5 kilometers long. That equates to around about 2.3 miles if you run in Imperial. Is actually Japan's largest motorsport venue. So I was quite surprised to read. I think that's just because of the amount of facilities that they've got there. And so, three drivers still out on track at the moment. Let's track these guys round as they come to the end of their laps. Do apologise, but I'm not going to have any telemetry information for you today. I'm only going to be running with what is on screen. That's just because I'm signed into a different account and forgot to change the settings. So my bad for that one, but I will try and keep you involved with all the information as it comes in. It looks as though a 124.7 is going to be an approximate milestone for any of the guys qualifying. Let's see what they can come up with as we begin this qualification session for tonight's sprint race. You've got K Morse currently watching the stream. Sad to see you not inside your famous BMW there, K Morse. Hope to have you back soon, but I know that he's got to do some work this evening. So it looks as though Stealth Sheep's out on track, so is Evan, and Uniclark has just left the pit box as well. Let's have a look on the map and see whereabouts these guys are. So Stealth Sheep is leading the chase. He's looking to try and get his laps in early. Looks as though we've got Evan just behind him in his pink Actual Vision car as well. In fact, all of these guys looking to get the tyres warmed up. In fact, tyres is going to be a key factor in this. Front left tyres are definitely going to be burning after a couple of laps. Trying to keep those tyre pressures balanced so that the tyres don't overheat too much is going to be key to these guys' setups. Of course, once those tyre temperatures do reach a critical state, it's going to be really hard to keep these cars on the straight and narrow. See here, Stealth Sheep almost flat through 110R. It comes through the final corner. Very little lift-off involved at all in that, even with the cold tyres. He's about to make his way onto his first hot lap. Looks as though the track limits are currently enabled. We do, of course, usually have them disabled for our sprint race in the for the first race of the evening. Looks as though they have been left on with for this time round. It's going to give those guys a bit of a rehearsal, I suppose, for the double length feature. So unfortunately, with timing boards, in fact, let's flash up the time and let's see what we've currently got in terms of their sector times. Now, of course, following Stealth Sheep at the moment. Looks as though his sector 1 wasn't looking all that great, although I think that was his previous lap. So we'll try and keep an eye out for any penalties that are being issued by the virtual race director throughout this first sprint race of the evening. Stealth Sheep looks to now cross the line. This will give us a good benchmark of where these guys are expected to come in. They'll then switch over. So 124.8, quick lap there from Stealth Sheep. Throwing the gauntlet down pretty quick. Let's have a look at what Evan can produce. It's a 125.8. Let's flip over to Demobi. Got a couple of cars, well, a car towing off the back of him, and he's picking up a tow as well. Not enough to try and beat Stealth Sheep's... Oh, sorry, he's beaten Stealth Sheep's time. It's actually Bobby Dazzler that's come in with the quickest. Bobby Dazzler producing the goods there with a 124.52. And we can see Bobby was actually towing off the back of Demobi there, so it looks as though either a little bit of luck or plenty of practice has definitely paid off for him. Let's flip on back over to Stealth Sheep and see how his lap is progressing this second time around. And they're bouncing off the limiter, keeping the rear in check. Very little in the way of braking, if any at all there. Seems to just throw it in. And a fantastic angle, smashing the apex. On his way into 110R. Is it going to be enough though? We'll soon find out. Bobby Dazzler currently leading the charge in this qualification session. Stealth Sheep makes an improvement, but it's only enough for second place. Let's flip back over to Demobi. Is he still picking up a tow? It doesn't look as though he is, so he's running at the moment in potentially dirty air from somebody ahead of him. I think that might be that guitar dude. I'm not too sure without checking. It is an improvement from Demobi though. He knocked Stealth Sheep back a place, so Stealth Sheep is now sat into third position. And Demobi obviously pushing pretty hard there, ends up putting it into the gravel and decides it's time to come into the pits, make some final adjustments and look for the next opportunity to get himself out for another hot one. But Bobby Dazzler remains in P1 in this sprint qualification session. He continues to go out for a couple more laps. In fact, we can see there that front left tyre is just starting to peak in its temperature. Currently showing yellow. Unfortunately, I can't get the statistics at the moment. As I mentioned before, my telemetry currently disabled. And we see Bobby Dazzler now make his way into the pits. So Demobi is back out. That might well be Cam Diz behind him. It's not. Cam Diz in the number 57. I'm going to have to try and get used to the new livery applied to this. In fact, Cam Diz has just gone quickest with a stonking lap. 124.458. There was no tow to speak of as well. So Ringer coming in and currently sat on top here in tonight's sprint qualification. Bobby Dazzler's just behind him as well. That might be a bit of a blessing in disguise for Bobby Dazzler. He's going to be able to pick up a tow so long as he can keep in line with him. Looks as though we've got Evan there turning his car into a motorcycle temporarily, catching a lot of curb, riding the two tyres but keeping the car on the straight and narrow pretty well. Didn't look as though we lost much time in that. So it looks as though Cam Diz has slowed down now. Allow Bobby Dazzler to come through. Bobby Dazzler isn't going to benefit from the tow. In fact, he's now allowed Evan through as well. It looks as though Evan's done enough to get himself into 8th position at the moment. He's sticking out for another lap. However, I think he's going to be coming in this time. Don't think he's going to have enough fuel to do one more, so I think this is going to be his last one before a pit stop, and then he's going to try and get right back out again to try and get another couple in if he can. So Stealth Sheep is back out on track again. Looks as though his tyres are warm, so I suspect as well that this is a hot lap that we're currently tracking around. The Rainbow sets himself up for this long straight. There's just a little right hand kink into it before he gets hard onto the brakes, pulling himself into turn 9. Up into this SP section now. We go into sector 2, getting a load of apex there, riding those track limits right on the very edge just to give him the optimum line. And a fantastic camera angle as well. Gotta love an action cam on an apex. Comes around now, the final turn he's going to make his run up. Is it going to be an improvement? We'll have to wait and see. Final 2 minutes now and counting in this session, 1 minute and 46. So no improvement there from Stealth Sheep. It looks as though he may well have reached his plateau unless he's got a couple of little mistakes that he can work on. Have to see how that one progresses. Cam Diz currently sat at the top of the leaderboard still, but we've got Bobby Dazzler out. Looks as though he's now entering a hot lap. In fact, it looks as though he was just on one, but 6/10 away from his best. We'll have to wait and see what he can produce next time around. He's going to have another bite of the cherry, though. Let's have a look at what Demobi's doing. Currently sat 3rd place, so he's going to be 2nd row unless he can make an improvement. Looks as though he's got a little bit of traffic as well. Both of these guys out on a hot lap, and Demobi's improving. It's only 600ths at the moment, but that could be a lot by the time he makes it to the end of the circuit. Got about 26/10 to make up. Now he's got a delicious looking toe on the start-finish straight. Let's see what this is going to produce for him. Crossing the line then, and it's an improvement enough to knock Bobby Dazzler down into 3rd position. So Demobi is currently alongside Cam Diz on that front row if it finishes like it does the final 20 seconds of the session. So a lot of these boys, looks as though Stealth Sheep isn't going to get another lap. Neither's that Qatar dude. Let's have a look. Uniclark currently sat in 6th. He's just about to come across the start finish. Let's see if there's any improvement from him from his final lap. There is indeed, but it still remains in 6th position. It looks as though Kovkarl's on a lap. We've also got Evan on a lap. Tro is just about to finish his. Let's continue to track him around, as is Cam Diz and Demobi. So all of these drivers still out on their final qualification lap. Tro's just about to cross the line. Is there going to be an improvement? Doesn't look as though it was a valid one. Not registered in there anyway. Currently tracking the number 20 Kovkarl as he makes a big mistake there, turning twice for that corner. That costs him quite dearly. I think that's that lap over with. Demobi looks as though he's coming into the pit, so that's job done from Demobi. He's going to have to settle for 2nd place. Let's fly back over to Cam Diz as he finishes up his lap. Currently coming around the final corner, but it is going to be pole position for the ringer, coming in and putting his foot down on his authority around this Sugo circuit. Some sort of entrance that comes in, and he makes an improvement as well with a 124.361 just to round it up. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is our running order for tonight's first sprint race of the evening. Cam Diz tops it out with a 124.361. He's going to lead away to Bobby Dazzler, it seems, as Demobi picks up a grid pace penalty. I can only assume that is for speeding in the pit lane as he came in. So it's going to be Demobi in 3rd, followed by Stealth Sheep. Alongside, just behind them, it's going to be that Qatar dude, alongside Uniclark, followed by Kovkarl and Evan. Linesfoot does enough for 9th place alongside Tro, and that is the running order for tonight's sprint race. As ever, we're going to have a couple of minutes for these drivers to get themselves set up for their 10-lap sprint. So remember, ladies and gents, these guys are going to have 10 laps around this. Track limits are enabled this time around. Regularly they're not. Also, full damage is enabled, so if you see anybody coming in, that is probably the reason for it. And also, if you're watching this for the first time, or you're not yet a member of this fantastic clean racing community, you want a little bit more information, head on over to www.rubbinsracing.co.uk, where you find all the information about what it is that we do, and all the information on how you can sign up. Also, if you want to keep up to date with all of the RR Championship information, you can follow us on Twitter or Instagram for up-to-date posts about what it is that we're running through the week. But back to the race at hand. Won't be long now for these guys to do their final adjustments, and then we're going to get this first race underway. 90 degrees Fahrenheit, the track temperature. That isn't going to help that front left tyre. These boys will be able to balance it. Here we go. Sat on the front of the grid. Cam Diz leading out the charge. Keep an eye out on that number 54 car. And they're away. Looks to be a good start from Cam. In fact, it looks to be a good start from all of them. Remember, K Morse in that BMW not present today, so no BMW flying in off the line. All drivers looking to get away cleanly. Demobi is remaining in third place ahead of Bobby Dazzler after his grid place penalty. And the rest of the pack look to be falling in line pretty well. No contacts, no spins. That's what we like to see here. Cam Diz leading the charge though. But the rest of the drivers looks as though Evan there just caught a load of curb. We saw it in practice or in qualification. I can't remember which session, but he also caught it again. Back onto two wheels. Didn't catch it quite as well that time. He's going to have to watch that as the race progresses. He's currently sat in 8th place though. So he hasn't lost a place away from it, and he hasn't lost touch with the rest of the pack at the moment. Cam Diz has made up around about half a second in the opening few corners of this first lap, and they all look to be settling it into their pace quite well. Let's jump on the chase of Stealth Sheep at the moment. That is Demobi ahead along with Bobby Dazzler, and then our current race leader ahead of him, just out of sight. In fact, there he is, just coming over the top of the crest of this long right-hander. No change in the positions at the moment. In fact, Evan looks as though he's just taken a place from Uniclark. Wonder whether or not that was a slowdown as Uniclark drops to the bottom of the pile, currently sat in 9th position. Looks as though we've lost Tro as well. I think there's been a disconnect. Just looking that there's 9 drivers currently racing in this one. Looks as though we may have lost Tro at some point through this. So Cam Diz leading the charge at the moment. He's got around about 0.8 of a second. Does look as though Demobi is jumping onto the back of Bobby Dazzler now though, piling on the pressure. Only a few tenths behind them. Let's jump into the chase cam. Get a better view of that. You can see him there right on the rear bumper of Bobby Dazzler. Looking for any opportunity that he can get. No need to prove his worth. It's been evident in all of the races that we've seen so far in 2020. He just wants to try and get himself a toe, I can imagine, up this start-finish straight, and then try and challenge the leader to try and extend his current championship standing lead ahead of Stealth Sheep, who's currently sat around about 1.3 seconds behind him. No move to be made from Demobi into turn 1 though. Just couldn't get the speed difference higher than that of Bobby Dazzler. Looks as though Stealth Sheep might have just got a warning from the race director as well, as we see Demobi moving up ever so slightly. On the back of Bobby Dazzler, you can see him hungry, just waiting for an opportunity. Stealth Sheep looks as though he made a bit of a mess coming out of the S's. And we see Demobi there also getting his back end out. Minor mistake there. How much does it cost him in terms of time? We'll have to wait and see as these cars come up. Come down the long straight into the kink. Pushing the horseback, so it looks as though we lost a couple of car lengths, which he's instantly made back up as Bobby Dazzler runs a little bit deep there. Having that green and black actual vision car of Demobi in your rear view mirror constant is definitely going to be off-putting for Bobby Dazzler. He's going to have to try and keep his head in the game if he wants to secure this second place. He's looking pretty good though so far. Just about to begin lap 4 of our 10-lap sprint race. Have a look at that guitar dude. Looks as though he had somebody for company. Doesn't look to be the case though. Let's move back to our battle for second place. Cam Diz is currently leading by 1.1 seconds ahead of the 2 cars that we're currently tracking around, and it looks as though Bobby Dazzler makes a minor mistake, ends up having to let Demobi past. Knew that he wasn't going to be able to continue his speed. I wonder whether or not it was a slowdown. So Demobi takes second place ahead of Cam Diz, And Stealth Sheep looks as though he's closing the gap ever so slightly, with that Guitar Dude right behind him as well. Moby might well be on a warning at the moment from the race director, as along with Bobby Dazzler and I think Stealth Sheep. Let's have a look. 2-second penalties applied to both Demoby and Bobby Dazzler. Stealth Sheep, on the other hand, is currently rocking a 3-second penalty as well. So this current running order, if the top sort of 6 drivers can keep within reach, this is going to change quite dramatically come the end of this race. Looks as though Candiz is able to keep it nice and clean though. And that's going to pay dividends when it comes to this, well, to the end of the race, that's for sure. And you see the checkered flag. He wants to make sure that he keeps his nose clean. He doesn't want any penalties applied. Otherwise, he could well be in with a shot of losing what has been a really, really good showing here in his first race in the RRTCC. So halfway through at the moment, we've got some great pace being set in terms of Demoby and Stealth Sheep that last lap around. Currently breaking into the 125s, and that's a race pace, don't forget, ladies and gents. You can see low 124s in qualifying from a lot of these boys, but it's definitely a lot different when you're trying to manage those tyres for longevity. And we can see a noticeable gap now forming up between that Guitar Dude and Cov Carl between 5th and 6th. That is the gap that you're seeing down the back straight there. Candiz still leading the charge though. Demoby looks as though he's closed the gap ever so slightly. He's around about half a second behind Candiz at the moment. Let's have a little bit of a look between the rest of the field. Looks as though they're all pretty well spaced out. So Cov Carl, Uniclark, Lionsfoot and Evan currently sat at the back of the pack, 15 seconds off the charge at the moment. So they're all pretty evenly spaced, but there is only 3 seconds between 1st and 5th at this time. Let's have a look and see how that equates to from the rear of that Guitar Dude's car. Not much at all, and as we bring up the timings, we can see those penalties have remained the same. So 2 seconds to Demoby, 2 seconds to Bobby Dazzler, 3 seconds to Stealth Sheep in that black and green monster livery car that we're seeing ahead of that Guitar Dude. As he jump back trackside, let's have a look. As we see Bobby Dazzler there getting very, very messy on the exit of the S's. That's going to allow Stealth Sheep to close up that gap. It looks as though he's managed to keep hold of his position though. Maintains 3rd, did well there not to catch too much grass and lose it sideways. Not sure what happened. Maybe he got himself onto 2 wheels, catching a little bit too much curb through the S's, and it looks as though his car just high-sided him on the exit of the corner, flew him all the way across the track. He did extraordinarily well to catch it on the grass. But now it looks as though we've got a noticeable gap forming up between Candiz and Demoby and the rest of these boys that we're currently tracking round on screen. Let's have a look at the gap between the leaders as Candiz tries to throw Demoby off the slipstream. It's not working at the moment though. Demoby seems to fall back in line into turn 1. Doesn't want to take any unnecessary risks, not with 3 full laps to go. Back on now for the battle for 3rd position between the red and blue car of Bobby Dazzler, that black and green car of Stealth Sheep. That's just got very sideways there. Didn't realise these touring cars had a handbrake, but he found one out of somewhere, and that's allowed that Guitar Dude now to close up that gap as they go side by side. That Guitar Dude thinks about it again, coming through the SP section. Didn't want to find himself with nowhere to go. The door inadvertently closed as Stealth Sheep just sets himself up for the natural driving line. So back onto the race for the lead of this sprint race. Got Candiz leading the charge, Demoby in 2nd. Those penalties look to have increased now for Stealth Sheep. 6 second worth of penalty now for Stealth Sheep. That's going to put him at risk of that Qatar dude and Kov Karl as things progress. In fact, if it gets any bigger, it's going to also put him at risk of Uniclark. Some damage limitation now from our championship challenger, Stealth Sheep. Let's jump back to this race. He is currently fighting for position. He has no reason to give it up at the moment. He's going to try and press on as much as he can, gain as many positions or reduce the deficit as much as he can to the leader to make sure that those penalties don't quite hurt him as much. Looks as though Bobby Dazzler's got that gap up though after that small mistake that we saw from Stealth Sheep. Doesn't look as though he's been able to recover that time. In fact, looks as though a lot of the drivers are able to keep themselves pretty consistent in terms of the general pace. Looks as though it's mainly just mistakes being made that are going to offer drivers a window of opportunity to take a place. There's certainly plenty of spots for overtaking generally in all other classes of cars, but it looks as though these touring cars, all of them of course for tonight's race in the same car, having little opportunity to try and breeze past one another without a mistake being made from the car ahead. So Cam Diz continues to lead this one ahead of Demobi. We're now about to enter the penultimate lap. Once he crosses this line, there's 4 tenths in it, and Demobi's just been unable to make any considerable gains on Cam Diz from the very start of this race. After Bobby Dazzler looked as though he got a slowdown, and that's what allowed Demobi to come through, and ever since then this gap's been pretty much stagnant at around about 2 or 3 car lengths. So Stealth Sheep now looks as though he's falling behind that Qatar dude, so Bobby Dazzler leading it to that Qatar dude, and Stealth Sheep now, as we see him just coming out the back of the S's, looks as though he's now at risk of potentially finishing 8th place after his penalties have been applied. They haven't got any greater though. Demobi on 2 seconds, Bobby Dazzler also on 2 seconds. Stealth Sheep currently sat at 6 seconds worth of penalties to be applied by the end of this race. And let's jump over to the front as we saw that gap really close down. It looks as though it's extended once again. It was a trick of the eye there. I thought it was down to less than a tenth of a second. Currently sat at 0.6 though, so Cam Diz has had an absolutely sterling run out here in his first race in the RRTCC. Hasn't had much time to prepare that Renault Megane for this Sugo circuit, but I suspect that he already had a setup lined up for it, because this has just been a stellar performance from him. Tracking Bobby Dazzler around the circuit now, and we can see that gap looks to be around about 3, maybe 4 car lengths back to that Qatar dude. It's only just over a second, I think, the difference between them. We'll flash back to our leader, who looks to have found an extra bit of pace from somewhere, setting a 124.8 that last time around. I think that's the first lap inside this session that's been sub 125. Demobi was also setting a very quick lap too in terms of race pace with a 125.0. It looks as though Cam Diz is going to take the bonus point as well, leading the charge here with only a few corners to go. I'll bring up the map so you can see where they are. Just 3 more corners separate Cam Diz from his first appearance and his first win in the RRTCC. Here to provide an update to our current champion, an upset rather, to our current championship leader. Comes around the final corner and it's just a sprint up to the start-finish line that's going to secure it for him. And it's definitely there, a flash of the lights from Cam Diz. Fantastic victory from him. Demobi's going to have to settle for second. Let's have a look at Bobby Dazzler as he manages to keep himself ahead of that Qatar dude. He is going to fall back a place though due to the time penalties, as is Stealth Sheep. He finds himself all the way down into 7th position. Looks as though Lionsfort and Evan are duking it out all the way to the line. Evan does, of course, have a penalty to be applied. 3 seconds, it seems, so it isn't going to count anyway, but Linesfoot gets the bragging rights. And so, ladies and gents, at the end of that session, let's have a look at our official standings from that race. Cam Diz takes the race victory with a 3.9 second, once penalties have been applied, lead ahead of Demobi. That Guitar Dude does enough for third just by keeping his nose clean, whereas Bobby Dazzler falls down into fourth place after a 2-second penalty is applied. Cov Carl and Uniclark's persistence pay off for a 5th and 6th finish, whereas Stealth Sheep has a 6-second penalty applied from the race director, and that finds him down into 7th position. Lionsfoot ends up finishing ahead of Evan in the race, but Evan did of course have a 3-second penalty applied, and that's going to be enough for 9th position from him. So stick with us, ladies and gents. We're just going to have the lobby set up for tonight's feature. We're going to have another 10-minute practice session to allow you guys to get yourselves a drink, get yourselves comfortable just in time for our feature race of the evening. There is, of course, going to be another qualification before that, so make sure you stick about. And we'll be back with you very, very shortly. And so, ladies and gents, as you can see, the league coordinator has set this one at 20 laps for our feature race for the evening. We're just about to get the 10-minute free practice for the features set up. They're then going to have 10 minutes of qualification as well to set our final grid. Looks as though Tro's back in the session now as well, so he's going to make up the 10th driver for tonight's grid. Remember, ladies and gents, our feature race does include a mandatory pit stop, so these guys are going to have to try and get their damage just right, or get no damage whatsoever, just to try and benefit from a speedy pit stop. Doesn't look as though anybody's leaving the pits in a hurry as these guys take advantage of the brakes. So allow me to give you a bit of a run through what you can expect from the Rubbins Racing YouTube channel for the rest of the week. So on Thursday, of course, it is time for our Thursday Night Lights, regular favourite here within the community, where we take a different track and a different car each and every week to try and push our drivers to their limits, get themselves frequented with taking place in an arranged championship style race. And this week we're going to be taking V8 supercars around the Red Bull Ring in Austria. So if you like a big 5-litre V8 engine roaring around the Austrian Alpines, make sure you tune in for that. It is going to be commentated by our latest edition but general Rubbins Racing regular of Lecky. So join him on Thursday night from 8 o'clock PM UK time at the usual place here at the RRTV YouTube channel. Then of course on Thursday it's time for our GT5 Ginetta Championship. That one looking pretty good in terms of its standings for Lightblade. Currently absent from tonight's RRTCC race, but he's currently leading that championship table by, looks as though it's 65 points ahead of K Morse. So Lightblade looks to try and retain his GT5 Ginetta Championship. And the GT5s this week on Friday will be broadcast on the RRTV channel, but unfortunately no live commentary for that one. It will just be our text commentator, Murray Talker. They're going to be taking it round Rapuna Park Club Circuit over in New Zealand. Very tricky circuit that. It's going to be fantastic to watch those Ginettas flying round as much as they can. And then on Saturdays it isn't televised, but it is time for the RR Indy Series. Standings in that one looking pretty interesting too. Bar End currently leading that one ahead of Stealth Sheep, so Stealth Sheep finds himself second in 2 championships at the moment. One of our latest drivers as well, and a pretty new driver to the GT3 Championship if you follow us on Sundays, in the form of Fast AF Gamer. He finds himself third in that championship, so only 47 points separating first and third in that one, so that one's definitely hotting up. And then on Sundays, of course, we have the Formula Renaults at 10:30 AM in the morning. Currently not televised, but we are looking at working on that. But at 8 o'clock PM UK time, it is of course the Rubbins Racing GT3 Championship. If you join me on Sunday, you managed to catch a fantastic race. Those standings looking pretty good for Duftino at the moment. He managed to get a couple of victories under his hat around the Algarve. Thorsten Schmidt still in with a shot at the title, but that deficit did definitely start to open up a little bit. Duftino currently leading that one on 257 points, where Thorsten Schmidt found himself back in second place on 219. And then as we make our way over through the weekend, we will of course be entering our final week of the season here again at the RRTCC. The final race of the season is going to be around Bathurst Mount Panorama. If you can only make a couple of streams over the next couple of weeks, that one is going to be one that you aren't going to want to miss. Looks as though a lot of our drivers that are absent are going to be back in time for that one. And if you've never watched a race, either in real life or in an esports environment around Bathurst, you're definitely not going to want to miss it. Fantastic bit of action to go along. Not many places to overtake without putting yourself at risk. So Uniclark there deciding to abandon that lap, allowing Bobby Dazzler to come through. 4 minutes remaining of the practice session. You guys just working on their pit entries. Moby definitely isn't going to want to suffer from another grid place penalty. Got Sir Silver Fox on the stream at the moment asking if this is quali. This isn't. This is currently our second free practice session. The touring cars operating slightly different to our regular broadcasts here at Rubbins Racing. We actually operate two different qualification sessions with two 10-minute practices before each of them. So 10-minute practice, 10-minute quali before both of the races, a 10-lap sprint race, and then 30 minutes worth of lap time put into laps for our feature. No mandatory pit stop, of course, for our sprint race. That follows the regular routine, but a mandatory pit stop being applied in time for the feature. You can see our drivers practicing the pit lane entries now. What we like to see. Last thing you want to do is not be frequented on how to enter the pits at speed. It's going to cost you some time come the end of the race when it comes down to our features. I know we've all succumbed to that issue before, where we've just been too eager to try and improve on our lap times and then completely bid it onto the pit lane entry. Not many of our drivers set in hot laps, it seems. Uniclark's got one in at a 125.5 and Demobi's also set one, but that is definitely not a hot lap, judging off the pace of our Bavarian driver. We saw him setting low 125s in terms of the race. He was able to pull in a sub 125 in terms of his qualification. The track temperatures, as they've progressed, look to have gained a couple of degrees Fahrenheit. I don't think that's going to have too much of an effect. We'll have to see what happens when it comes to the race time or the qualification time. Keep an eye out on that temperature though, we'll see how it tracks and changes. We've got Silver Fox putting in Lion's Foot for the win in the comments section on YouTube. Stick about, we'll have to see what he can come up with. Well, set a lap time of 127 as he looks to try and work on his setup just in time for tonight's feature. So we've now got a little bit of traffic coming on track. Looks as though that is the red and yellow livery of Tro back in the session. Actually seemed as though his game crashed as he was getting up onto the loading screen. He's trying to get some heat into those tyres from the look of things. He's followed by that guitar dude. Had a great showing round last time around. And who we got in the background? I just can't make out the car. I think it might be the blue and white car of Uniclark. Either way, it looks as though they've returned to the pits. So 40 seconds remain of this free practice, and then we're going to be heading into the second qualification of the evening. By all means, let me know your predictions for the qualification. Is it going to be another Camdiz upset in terms of the championship lead against Amobi and Stealth Sheep? Or have these guys been working on something in their practice session, trying to hone in that setup just to try and eke out a few extra tenths wherever they can? So the session's now over. These guys are going to finish off their laps and return into the pits, and then game time is on in terms of the qualification in the feature. I personally think that Cam Dizzy's pace throughout the race and qualification is going to put him there or thereabouts in terms of that front row. Of course, we're going to see good pace set from Demobi in terms of his qualification, but that's not to discount the pace of that Qatar dude as well. He's able to pull out some fantastic laps in qualification last time around. I'm sure he's going to be able to do it as well this one. Let's keep an eye out on who's going to exit the garage first, though, as we get this 10-minute qualification underway. Looks as though Stealth Sheep is the first to move, followed by Demobi. Uniclark now out of the paddock as well. Demobi looks as though he's going to do all he can to stay in touch with Stealth Sheep, get that added benefit of a drafted toe through the two long straights around this Sugo GP circuit, longest of which that we're currently on at the moment is just shy of 1 mile long. It might be a few hundred yards shy of a mile. The start-finish straight isn't much further off that either. Seems as though Stealth Sheep picked up those penalties. I think it was on the S's where he just had to run into the grass ever so slightly. Definitely not expecting the harsh penalties applied by the race director. Certainly tough on track limits around this circuit. Lessons learned, though. He's going to try and put his best foot forward in time for the future. He now begins his hot lap with Demobi just behind him as well for company. So Demobi, they're just using all of the track. Fantastic exit from the S's. We saw just a little bit of gain being made. And it's these subtle differences that really separate a driver when they're all of this sort of calibre. No visible mistakes, but the minor changes between the lines that these guys are taking, or how late they can get onto the brakes, how much brakes they apply, or how soon they can get onto the throttle, is the difference of just a few hundredths of a second that's soon to build up into tenths come a sector, which can potentially turn into seconds come the end of a lap. As Demobi does all he can to try and remain in the draft of Stealth Sheep. Looks as though Stealth Sheep's doing all he can to try and disrupt that air, give him a load of dirty air to try and slow him down as much as possible. Stealth Sheep, though, falls into second place behind Demobi after that first lap. Uniclark does enough for third place. Good lap from him, getting 25 dead, right on the money. That could see him up and around the second row come the end of this, and he's still got a chance to make improvements. Let's have a look at our previous race winner. Yet to set a lap at the moment. In fact, it looks as though he's just out on a hot one. Sorry, on a cold lap. Bobby Dazzler's done enough for second place. That was the name of the person that I was trying to think of when I was going through the running order, along with that guitar dude. So, current standings are Demobi ahead of Bobby Dazzler, ahead of third place that guitar dude. Stealth Sheep finds himself in fourth position as he qualified last time as well. Then it's Uniclark and Kovkarl, with Tro now coming in into seventh place. 6 minutes remaining of the session. Kovkarl now looks as though he's begun his hot lap. We'll continue to track him round on this lap and see whereabouts it lands him. Camden's getting support from Dominic Strange on the stream. He certainly proved his worth in the sprint race. Let's see whether or not he can pull it out the bag for the feature as well and get himself a back-to-back debut here in the RRTCC. As mentioned before this racing began, seen him on track many times, always seems to bring the pace no matter what car class he's in, so I did expect him to do well here, perhaps not to get the victory inside the sprint though. Great lap there from Demobi, getting a 124.2 last time around, and he's now put himself into the pit lane. I imagine that we'll see another fight later on in the session from Demobi, unless he decides that that's enough and takes time for a break. Let's have a look what Cam Diz can produce though, just coming over the crest now and about to cross the start finish line. And it's enough for pole position. Provisional pole position goes to Cam Diz with a 124.14. Demobi immediately back out on track as well. Looks as though he's timed that quite well. Let's have a look whereabouts he is. Has he found himself with any tow? It doesn't look as though he's going to get any assistance in terms of a slipstream. Stealth Sheep has found himself now in 5th position after that stonking lap from Cam Diz. Bobby Dazzler looks as though he's just starting a lap, and that's Tro in the background as well. Tro will be looking to try and make an improvement. So the only driver yet to set a lap at the moment is Evan. He looks as though he's now exited the paddock and he's coming out onto track. I think currently on a cold one. Let's flip over to him. In fact, yep, looks as though he's just about to start his hot lap here with 3 3/4 minutes remaining in this qualification session. Cam Diz leads the charge alongside Demobi, who's going to join him on the front row if this running order doesn't change. And Bobby Dazzler and that guitar dude currently finding themselves in the great position of a second row start here in the feature. Have a look over that number 7 actual vision of Demobi. Only 12 tenths off the pace of Cam Diz in that qualification, but it's going to take an amazing lap really to try and equal it. Not sure a 123 is going to be possible around here, but we'll have to wait and see what these guys can produce in the final 2 minutes and 45 seconds remaining. A couple of corners now from Demobi on this lap. Looks as though he's going to have another couple of laps to go if he likes. He's definitely fueled up for it. 97 litres of fuel on board. So he is currently running with over race fuel. We see him come into the pits. Is there going to be a quick change before he gets himself back out again? It looks as though he's definitely got enough time, so long as he gets out of that pit lane pretty quick, to set another lap. Cam Diz is trying to improve on his again. He's only got 5 litres of fuel in, but he's definitely got enough for one more. And Moby remains inside the pit lane, it seems. Don't think he's going to be coming out for another lap. Bobby Dazzler's still out on track, 20 litres of fuel. In fact, it looks as though he's just exited the pit lane, coming back out onto track to try and make an improvement. He's potentially got Demobi's front row in his sights here. He's only going to have one bite of the cherry though. One hot lap remaining for him so long as he crosses the line. Pretty sharpish. So it looks as though Demobi, Uniclark, Tro and that guitar dude now as well are all going to settle for their current positions and put it down to chance. Evans done enough to get himself into 7th place, but of course Kovkar Lion's Foot could well upset that. Let's have a look at what Bobby Dazzler's going to get in terms of his final lap. 30 seconds remaining of the session. I'll now engage the map as well so we can see which guys are crossing the line. I think that's Stealth Sheep that's just crossed the line. He makes an improvement and he returns to the pits. So no, not going out for another one. Stealth Sheep's going to have to settle for 5th place. Lion's Foot could upset that. Unfortunately, I don't think he's quite up there in terms of the pace of Stealth Sheep, but you never know. Never say never. So Cam Diz leads this one out unless Bobby Dazzler, who are currently following around the circuit, can upset him. See him flying down the back straight there. Hard on the brakes early and then easing them off around that turn 9 corner into the SP section, where it flattens off, comes down the hill into 110R and then into the final corner. Bobby Dazzler found himself just a 10th or 2 off the pace. It looks as though he's abandoning the lap and entering the pit lane. It looks as though that's going to be our running order once Lion's Foot finishes his lap. It looks as though he's a little bit off the pace though. 2 tenths lost in that first sector. Cam Diz, of course, is still out on track. He's about to cross the start finish. In fact, he just comes into the pit lane to practice his pit lane entry. He knows that he's secured that pole position. Lion's Foot crosses the line and no improvement there. So as that session ends, here is our running order for tonight's feature race. Cam Diz does enough to secure himself back-to-back pole positions. Is it going to be enough for back-to-back victories here around Sugo's GP circuit? Demobi finds himself in 2nd place, so side by side with Cam Diz on that front row. 2nd row we've got Bobby Dazzler followed by that guitar dude. 3rd row is made up of Stealth Sheep and Uniclark. The 4th row, Evan gets himself into 7th position, good qualification from him, alongside Kovkar in 8th, and then Lion's Foot on the back row next to Tro.
The tree pit.
So as these guys line up, they're going to have 2 minutes to make their final adjustments, set their fuel levels just right, change their race strategies to however they like, because there is a mandatory pit stop enabled for this one. We will of course try and keep an eye out on who has pitted and when, because that is going to play a crucial role in terms of the strategies as the race progresses. 20 laps of Sugo coming right up here in the RRTCC Race 5 feature race. Don't go anywhere, you don't want to miss this. "20 seconds warning coming from there, but it looks as though all of the drivers are ready. It's about to prepare for lights out. Are we going to see a great start as we did last time around? Looks as though there might have been a false start there from Bobby Dazzler. He got away ever so early. He's going to move up into 1st place, but I do believe that that's going to be a drive-through from him. a little bit wide. It looks as though Demobi's now taking the lead. Cam Diz falls back into third position here. Evans moved all the way up into fourth. Great start from him in that pink Actual Vision car. Stealth Sheep looking... Oh, as there's contact there between that Guitar Dude and Stealth Sheep as they fall all the way down the order. Stealth Sheep is now in 9th position. That Guitar Dude now changes places. So, Demobi leads the charge. Bobby Dazzler in 2nd position. Cam Diz in 3rd. I do believe that there is going to be a drive-through penalty from this, but I'll need to get it confirmed. In fact, let's bring up the timing board. Looks as though it's going to be a 20-second penalty applied from Bobby Dazzler there, so no drive-through penalty. Just 20 seconds added on. That's definitely going to hurt him. Demobi, though, getting up an early lead ahead of Cam Diz. 1.1 seconds and counting. So 5th place currently Uniclark. Evans ahead of him. He's had a great start. Managed to work his way up the places. Looks as though, in fact, I thought that Evan may have potentially got a slowdown. We can see him there flashing his lights, allowing those drivers to come through. Let's jump back over to our battle for first place as Evan drops down to 8th in the running order, looking to make sure that he doesn't get any penalties from the race director. So Demobi leading out the charge at the moment. Bobby Dazzler's gone very defensive there to try and block off the run of Cam Diz. Cam Diz is right on it though, hanging onto his bumper at the moment, and it looks as though Bobby Dazzler's going to have to allow him through, as we see Uniclark there absolutely eating Armico in the background of that one. Where's that going to lead him? Is he back on track? Looks as though he's managed to get himself back on there, but he's sat in 9th position and soon to be losing out to Tro. In fact, it looks as though he's lost that position now. Cam Diz, in the meantime, he's found himself up into 2nd place a couple of corners previous. So is he going to get within arm's reach of Demobi, or is Demobi just going to pull away this lead? We'll have to wait and see how this one unfolds. Looks as though Evans found himself with a 20-second penalty as well. I wonder whether or not that was also a false start, just like Bobby Dazzler. He finds himself running down the order. That might have explained why he got into 4th position. Fantastic start from him, but it looks as though he jumped the final light. So drama unfolding here in the feature, it seems. Kov Karl is also the first one to enter the pits. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Uniclark entering the pits as well. There it is. Confirmation straight away. I imagine he sustained pretty heavy damage after that collision with the wall, just coming out of the S's here that we're about to approach. So lap 3 at the moment of 20 laps. Demobi leading up the charge. Let's have a look at the battle progressing between Stealth Sheep, that Guitar Dude, looking to try and take away his 4th position at the moment, and there's plenty of drivers behind them. Remember, ladies and gents, Evan currently sat in 6th in that pink Actual Vision car. He has got a rather large penalty, but that isn't going to stop him. He's going to try and make up as much pace as he can in the early start of this race, just to try and make sure that that penalty doesn't sting him too badly. So Uniclark is still in the pits, getting that damage repaired. Substantial damage to that blue and white livery Renault Megane. Remember, before tonight, Uniclark was 3rd in the RRTCC Championship. I did say that it was mathematical... sorry, he was still in with a mathematical chance of the championship. I think that has now unfortunately petered his way as we see him now exiting the pits. Looks as though he's going to fall in a lap behind that Guitar Dude as he moves out of the way courteously there for Evan to continue his race. Unfortunate from Uniclark, he's going to have to do a whole lot to try and make it up in this race. He has got the added benefit though that there is only 10 drivers in tonight's race, so more points on offer for finishing at the back of the pack. Looks as though we've got a battle forming between Tro at the moment, and I beg your pardon, I think that's Tro. I'm getting a warning coming up, but it's Tro and Uniclark behind him. Let's jump back over to the battle for 4th position. That guitar dude trying to hunt down Stealth Sheep at the moment. So that guitar dude topping him out in terms of his previous lap time. Around about 5/10 quicker. Just shy of half a second anyway. You see him now riding into the slipstream. Looks as though Cam Diz has slipped down into 3rd position behind Bobby Dazzler. I wonder if that was a slowdown penalty that's caused that. Maybe a mistake if we've just missed it. Bobby Dazzler, of course, got a 20-second penalty applied, so maybe Cam Diz, if he had a little bit of defensive action to do, he's maybe just moved aside to allow Bobby Dazzler to pass through, as he knows that that position is going to be secure come the end of the race, provided he doesn't pick up any penalties himself. That has allowed Demobi, though, to bring up a substantial gap of 3 seconds. Let's switch over to him. You can just see the distance behind him and the other drivers now looks to be in the region of 25 to 30 car lengths. Demobi doing all he can to try and secure victory tonight and put himself even further ahead of Stealth Sheep in the battle for the championship. Of course, in the sprint race, that certainly helped. But he knows that a race victory here tonight, along with any fastest lap that he might be able to get, will put him one step closer to a 3rd consecutive Rubbins Racing Touring Car Championship champion trophy. So we're currently watching as Bobby Dazzler looks as though he's made his way into the pits. Currently watching that guitar dude battling with Stealth Sheep. Looks as though that guitar dude able to reduce the deficit between the two in certain areas of the track. Well, it did look as though he just overstepped the line there in terms of his track limits. I imagine that a slowdown's going to be applied. It doesn't look as though he's easing off that throttle though. As we see Evan now making his mandatory pit stop, along with Tro. So half of the field now made their mandatory pit stops for the race. Everyone from Kovkarl and above are yet to make their mandatory pit stops. Oh, sorry, from Lion's Foot and above making the mandatory pit stop. Of course, Kovkarl pitted quite early. So no change here between these as we see Demobi, current race leader, enters the pits. We're about to see a change in the running order. Cam Diz now going first with that guitar dude in 3rd, as we see Stealth Sheep also deciding that now is the time to make his pit stop. Let's have a look, see whether or not these guys are changing tyres. Doesn't look as though they are. As we see Demobi getting ahead of Bobby Dazzler there. Bobby Dazzler coming into the pits also for quite a long stint. Stealth Sheep has now left, so Demobi has got a little bit of time to make up, 17 seconds, but don't forget Cam Diz yet to make his mandatory pit stop here, as is Lion's Foot, that guitar dude, also yet to make their pits. So Demobi will have to get past Lion's Foot. Although Lion's Foot hasn't made his pit stop yet, they are of course fighting for position. I think the speed deficit will be enough though. Demobi will be able to make that move past him quite easily, as it looks as though our lead coordinator pays him the courtesy, knowing that Demobi's that much quicker and currently fighting for a league championship, allows him to pass through with relative ease. Doesn't look as though much time lost by either driver there. Cam Diz, in the meantime, is now made up his gap to 18.3 seconds between him and Demobi. that guitar dude has decided to come into the pits. So I do believe that it is only Lionsfoot and Cam Diz yet to make their mandatory pits. Lionsfoot decides that now is the time, so it's all on Cam Diz now in terms of the pit stops. It looks as though Demobi's since put the foot down. He's brought that 18.4 deficit down to 17.5 seconds. So Demobi flying around this circuit now. Let's have a quick look at the penalties being applied. That guitar dude's picked himself up 2 seconds, but other than that, looks to be 30 seconds now for Evan and a 20-second penalty for Bobby Dazzler. Looks as though Cov Carl's got some action going on track, just behind that guitar dude. Cov Carl, before tonight's racing, found himself in 9th place in the championship standings. That guitar dude in 4th position. So this will be great for Cov Carl if he can be battling that guitar dude for position here on track. Keep an eye out on the lap times of these two guys. Looks as though that guitar dude actually had a stinker last time around. I think that might have been due to maybe a pit stop, I'm not too sure. But we definitely saw that that guitar dude has bags of pace in terms of qualifying pace, and it does look as though he's able to pull up a bit of a gap now ahead of Cov Carl. So let's have a look at our current provisional race leader. Cam Diz had a fantastic qualification session for both of tonight's races, had a flawless sprint race, and now he's doing all he can to try and keep Demobi at bay and bring up that gap between the two as much as possible, in the hope of getting a free pit stop later on in this race. I think 20 seconds is what he's going to be aiming for as ever. Get around that 20-second mark, and so long as you've got ideal conditions for your pit crew, you might stand a chance of getting out ahead of 2nd place. Just about approaching the halfway point of tonight's race. Cam Diz about to cross the line for lap 10 out of 20. So as we run through the order, Cam Diz currently in 1st position, Demobi in 2nd, 18 seconds away from our current race leader. Stelshi finds himself around about 18 seconds behind Demobi. That guitar dude currently in 4th, followed by Cov Carl, Evan, Lionsfoot, Tro, Uniclark and Bobby Dazzler. Remember though folks, Evan has got a 32-second penalty to be applied by this. That's going to sit him in around about 8th place at the moment. It looks as though Demobi is unable to try and close up too much of the gap between him and Cam Diz at the moment. Cam Diz in open circuit looks to be putting in pretty consistent 25.2s, there or thereabouts. Demobi went quickest last time around, but it looks as though he's losing time on lap 10 here, hemorrhaging time a little bit. Looks as though his tyre temperatures are doing quite well though, as Cam Diz decides now is the time to come into the pits. Ladies and gents, that is all of our drivers now made their mandatory pit stops. The race is officially on. Bring up the map so you can try and have a look at where Demobi is in terms of his track position. Expect him to come past pretty shortly. In fact, there he goes in the foreground. Looks as though he's got quite a bit of time ahead of Cam Diz. Wasn't the quickest of pit stops there from his crew. As he returns back on track, looks as though the deficit is going to be sat around about 4.5 seconds between Cam Diz and Demobi at the moment. So it looks as though it's just over 4 seconds. The race is definitely on. It looks as though he's potentially... it looks as though it was under braking. I thought he'd made up a huge amount of a gap there. It looks as though Demobi was just in the heavy braking zone. Coming through the SP sections. Oh, sorry, it was into the rainbow corner, having to brake quite hard, and that's why we saw that deficit come down. Does look as though he's half a second off his best pace, though. Cam Diz just shy of 5 seconds away from Demobi. In fact, that's come down to around about 4 now as the Project Cars 2 split time sort themselves out. So lap 12 of 20. Is it going to be Demobi securing yet another race victory from the end of this session? We're going to see a back-to-back set of wins from a debutant in the form of Cam Diz. Just trying to keep an eye out for that number 57 car of Cam Diz. In fact, is that him in the background? It is indeed. So they're within sight of each other when it comes down to the straight sections. That's going to give Cam Diz all the motivation that he needs, I think, to try and push on as he sets a green sector 1 that time around. Only 500ths in it, but that will definitely make the difference. Bring up the timing boards. So Demobi currently setting the purple lap around this race with a 124.763. Bear that in mind, because remember folks, there is going to be a bonus point applied to any fastest lap in all of the sessions, along with a bonus point for qualification pole position. So as the rest of the drivers look to be quite evened out, looks as though Cam Diz sets himself a purple lap. It's not enough to take the crown of Demobi just yet, but he's not too far away with a 124.931 last time around. He's got that deficit now, the split times bobbing up and around the 4-second mark. With 7 laps to go, he's got quite a lot to do here without any mistakes from Demobi. Let's have a look. Demobi looks as though he's just got past a back marker of Uniclark there. Uniclark suffering quite substantial damage after he lost it coming through the S's, colliding with the Armico. Collected himself, but managed to get it back on track and get himself into the pits to get that damage repaired. He's actually found himself as well in 9th position, as we potentially a little bit of commentator's curse there, mentioned his name and he ran off track, managed to keep it back onto the black stuff pretty quick though. So Demobi remains around about 4 seconds ahead of the second place of Cam Diz. Let's have a look at what it is come the end of the straight though. Does look as though Cam Diz is shaving little bits away from that split time. Have a look, it looks as though Evans got himself in a bit of a tussle with Kov Karl now. Although this is fighting for on-track position, Evan does have a substantial penalty being applied from the race director. I'm afraid to say, I do think it was a false start from him as he moves up the inside. Job done there, I think, from Evan. Holds onto the inside line quite nicely. Evan recently making the transition from a gamepad onto a Logitech G29, and it appears to be paying dividends for our Irish staff member. As they just come together there, looks as though they managed to keep it on the straight and narrow. Kov Karl now backing away, and that position is going to be Evans. Come the end of the race though, it's going to be taken away from him, I do believe. 32 seconds still to be applied. Let's jump back up to our leader, the Moby, currently leading this one around about 3.5 seconds ahead of his competitor Cam Diz. That is Uniclark in the background, but just behind Uniclark we did just see a flash of the black, white and yellow livery of Cam Diz, trying to hunt down our German champion in the RRTCC at the moment. Doing a valiant job at it, but he has got a mountain to climb. Looks as though he's got it to 3.5 seconds now. Moby's just going to want to try and keep himself consistent, keep that front left tyre pressure, tyre temperature as low as possible to make sure that he can put the power down should Cam Diz get too close for comfort. Let's have a look as this battle looks to be transpiring between Kovkarl and Evan. Kovkarl getting right back on it, trying to hunt down Evan again. This is a battle for provisional 5th place. Evan does of course have a penalty which I mentioned earlier. You see Kovkarl moving up the inside. Evan there commands his line. Kovkarl is going to have to do it all again, I think. Have a look at Stealth Sheep. We've not seen much from him in this race as we've been following Cam Diz and Demobi around the circuit. Looks as though he's maintaining 3rd position ahead of that Qatar dude. That Qatar dude not inside, that is currently Bobby Dazzler in 10th position that you're seeing just behind him. It doesn't look as though he's going to lose out too much in the feature. We did see a large penalty being applied in the sprint race. Not the case this time around as we bring up his information. He's run a clean one here, avoiding any excursions over the racing line as it caught him off guard last time with 2 3-second penalties being applied by the virtual race director. Let's jump back over to that battle between Kovkarl and Evan. Looked as though it was much closer. It's around about 3/4 of a second between these two. I've got to say, after watching Evan's progression throughout the season here at RRTV, whenever we broadcast him, we have seen big improvements. You see him there potentially making a mistake, maybe just hearing his name being mentioned. It looks as though he's ended up collecting Kovkarl come the end of it. Don't think there's going to be much damage from that one. Looks as though he managed to get on his brakes with plenty to do. But yeah, what I was going to say is we've seen notable improvements, and what we can do now is we can monitor his improvements as he makes the transition between a gamepad and a wheel, giving him that extra feel, able to catch the car much cleaner. And it looks to be apparent just in tonight's racing alone. Big step up from him in terms of his finishing position, at least on track when penalties haven't been applied. So back to the battle for the lead of this feature race. Looks as though Cam Diz now within 3 seconds with 3 laps to go of Demobi. We can see he's also challenged Demobi as well for that fastest lap, 124.676. So the bonus points of the fastest lap look as though they've been taken away from Demobi. Is he going to try and pull something out of the bag to get that back come the end of the race? To wait and see. Plenty more action to come here in the final 3 laps. As I mentioned earlier, if you're watching this for the first time or you've not yet joined a fantastic racing community that we operate here, you'll want to try and improve your racecraft, race etiquette, or your lap times or setups around Project Cars 2 and the PS4 platform, then head on over to www.robbinsracing.co.uk. You'll find all the information there about what it is that we do, how to contact us, and how to join our Discord. Once you join, of course, you're going to be greeted by all of the community along with a member or two of our staff. We'll then want you to go through a small evaluation drive just to make sure that you understand our rules and regulations and our track etiquette guidelines. Once you've done that, you'll then be open to put your name down to all of the championships available coming up in a couple of weeks for Season 4, as well as join in all of our community races that we host throughout the day. Also, if you're interested in commentary on esports or virtual racing, sim racing, then you'll find contact details on our website of how you can get in touch with us to try and join our team here at Rubbins Racing. So, lap 18 of 20, Demobi leading the charge with a 2.5, maybe even 3 second gap to second place Cam Diz. Looks as though that guitar dude has got himself within fighting place now of Stealth Sheep. Not sure what's happened to Stealth Sheep there, but that guitar dude is definitely in with a shout of stealing away his podium. We'll continue to watch this as this one transpires. We will keep an eye out on the split times between Candiz and Demobi, but as Demobi begins his penultimate lap, looks as though he's done enough. As these guys cross the line, not much between them at all. Around about 2, maybe even 3 tenths between them. Equal a couple of car lengths. Any mistake is going to cost either of these two drivers at the moment. Red and blue car in the background, just to remind you, is Bobby Dazzler. He's currently at the bottom of the running order, so he's not fighting for position. It is Stealth Sheep in the monster livery, followed by that guitar dude in the blue and yellow Imochi livery. Stealth Sheep's going to have to try and go defensive, I think, come the end of the back straight. Into the horseback corner. A couple of different lines that you can use there. Possible cutback onto the run-up into the SP section. Guitar dude not having any window of opportunity to take that position from Stealth Sheep. Remember, before tonight's racing, Stealth Sheep currently sat in second place in the championship running order. I do believe he's still going to retain that second position in the championship standings, but his gap is definitely going to be extended after his 7th place finish in the sprint, and from Demobi's seeming race victory here in the feature race. Let's have a look at our current race leader. He's just coming around Rainbow Corner now to make his way onto the back straight. Only 5 corners separates Demobi from yet another victory here in the Rubbins Racing Touring Car Championship in Season 3. He's had plenty to go off. That's going to put him one step closer to a 3rd consecutive Rubbins Racing Touring Car Championship title in 2020. That is back to back to back if he can do it. I believe he's our first driver ever to achieve such a feat. Coming around the final corner now and making his way up towards the start-finish line. Great drive from Demobi here to take the race victory. Notable mention as well from our debutant Cam Diz. Didn't quite do enough. It looked as though his pit crew let him down in the end to try and get him that race victory, but second place is definitely admirable. Stealth Sheep looks as though he's going to cross the line in 3rd position as he looks to cause some damage to Bobby Dazzler as well come the end of it. So Cov Carl looks as though he's about to secure 5th position. We saw him duking it out with Evan earlier on in the race, but it's going to be 5th for Cov Carl as Evan crosses the line just a couple of seconds behind him before that penalty is about to be applied. Lionsfoot looks as though he's going to finish on track in 7th position. That's going to actually bump him up to 6th by the time he crosses the line. And Tro is going to cross the line on track on 8th. That's going to be enough for 7th position. So ladies and gents, that concludes our feature race of the evening. Let's have a run through that running order. Demobi ends up finishing in first place. He didn't get the fastest lap in the end. That accomplishment was given to Cam Diz, who actually looks as though even if he'd have got closer to Demobi, he actually picked up a 6-second penalty come the end of that race in him trying to push. So he finishes 11 seconds behind the leader. Stealth Sheep does enough to secure third place ahead of that Guitar Dude, finishing 16.6 seconds behind Demobi. That Guitar Dude, with a 4-second penalty in the end, has to settle for 4th position. Kovkal does enough for 5th, with Lion's Foot in 6th and Tro in 7th. Evan finding himself down in 8th after a 32-second penalty being applied there. Uniclark ends up finishing in 9th, with Bobby Dazzler crossing the line in 10th position in the end after an extended pit stop due to some extensive damage. So that concludes our Rubbins Racing Touring Car Championship race around this Sugo GP circuit. Remember folks, we're going to be taking these cars around Bathurst next week on Tuesday from 8 o'clock PM. Join me then, and in the meantime you can look forward to Thursday Night Lights coming up on Thursday at 8 o'clock PM. In the meantime, wherever you're watching us in the world, stay safe. If you'd like to catch up on the rest of the action from previous races in this season, you'll be able to find them all available at our YouTube channel as per usual. In the meantime, look after one another and we'll see you again very shortly. Good night.